If I'm sleeping with my assistant, it doesn't mean I hate my wife.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Truth Review. I'm Hayes, and this Tucker Carlson conversation about Section 219 of the defense bill contains a lot of specific technical claims about what the provision actually does, who tried to stop it, and how the vote broke down. Tucker claims AIPAC funds both Ted Cruz and Chuck Schumer, despite them agreeing on almost nothing else, that Section 219 would merge American and Israeli defense infrastructure permanently, and that a bipartisan coalition tried and failed to strip it out. Every one of those claims needs to be checked against the actual bill text and the actual vote record. Hit subscribe because Truth Review checks the bill language, the vote counts, and the funding numbers. Now let's get into it.
Israel firsters and the Israel lobby run candidates and select them for office. They notably don't really care so much what their views are on various cultural issues. So they'll throw money at candidates regardless of what their views are on trans issues or gun rights or even actually abortion. They're so-called single issue voters, and that issue is Israel. And they'll partner with, like I said, anyone in order to ruthlessly pursue the interests of that foreign government. Would this new third party be as equally disciplined as them, willing to compromise on all those other issues in order to confront this one, which is foreign influence, U.S. militarism, and the deep state?
Well, I would say, first of all, how smart strategically of the Israeli lobby, AIPAC, and others to take that position. They're funding both Chuck Schumer and Ted Cruz, who seem like polar opposites, right? But they're not. And that tells you something big. But what's interesting is Ted Cruz and Chuck Schumer wind up on the same side of all the big questions around economics and foreign policy. Same side. They both think it's totally fine to tax interest at half the rate of capital. Like, really, how is that fine? It's like crazy. But everyone's on board with that. Everyone's on board with Iran. So there is a sense in which the Israel issue is a foundational issue, not because of Israel. I've thought from day one, as someone who's never even been against Israel, ever, my entire life, I don't hate Israel. I still don't hate it. I feel sorry for Israel now. But there's a sense in which it's actually deeply revealing of the attitudes that got you to that position. In other words, if you're willing to take money from a foreign country to do its bidding, you obviously have contempt for your own. Like, how could that not be true, right? If I'm sleeping with my assistant, it doesn't mean I hate my wife, but I clearly don't have much respect for her, right? Obviously. And that's kind of analogous to what we're seeing. So they don't care about the country. So for me, the first and most important, maybe only issue would be care about your country. No, you can't. Obviously, take money from a foreign lobby or have a foreign passport or serve in a foreign military. Those are just obvious. That's just easy, right? But you should be really focused in an emotional way, at an emotional level, as a father is with his children, on your own country. You should really care. And I do think that I don't think it's naive. I mean, by the way, I've had a lot of opinions on these topics over 35 years, which is exactly how long I've been doing this. And this is what I've come to after watching all of this time, is that all that matters is your motive. You're not going to get everything right no matter who you are, because you're a person, you're flawed. But you're going to get most things pretty right over time if you are acting out of genuine love and concern for your kids, your enlisted soldiers, your employees at the company, or your citizens in the nation. It's all the same. If you really care, you will be a pretty good steward of their interests. And so I would screen by that. Why are you in this? I think motive, I think the person actually matters much more than I ever thought. We were told, as long as someone's right on the issues, Ted Cruz, by the way, is clever in a way. Well, it turns out Ted Cruz is an idiot, but I didn't even know that. But Ted Cruz is conservative, pro-family in ways that I like. I've always been conservative on that, in that I like my family and I want them to thrive. And Ted would always run on that issue. And I would be I agree with Ted Cruz. But then you look at Ted Cruz's own family and you're first of all, that matters to me. Does your wife respect you? Do your kids respect you? If they don't, why would I vote for you again? Why would I respect you? If the people who know you best, who are in your charge, if you're a husband and father, you're responsible for your wife and children to protect and provide. Sorry, I don't care what they tell you in feminism school. That's just a fact of nature. And if the people you're responsible for protecting and providing for don't respect you, why would I? And this is, again, this is not like some talking point. Like, I've arrived at this conclusion from decades of watching. That is what matters. A good man with good motives will do a good job over time with tons of speed bumps and all that, but like, he will do a good job. And we just have rotten people who really don't care. How could you force the entire population to get COVID shots, which didn't work, and then look as cancer rates and heart attack rates rise and make no effort to see if there's a connection? Like, I don't understand that. Would you treat anyone you love that way? No, you treat only people you have contempt for that way. And that's one of 1,000 examples I could give you. But we have bad people with bad motives at the very top, not throughout government, tons of nice people in government, not tons, but some. But our leadership is just rotten. And I do think JD actually kind of cares for whatever it's worth. I'm sure I'll be attacked as a tool of Palantir or whatever, but I know him and I feel that way. I'm not saying he's got a bright political future. I'm not convinced that's true. But I am saying he is a rare, decent man in a sea of opportunists and greed heads and violent worshipers and just men without dignity or self-respect. Like, they don't respect themselves. That's why they behave this way. They've been turned out in prison. They've been raped by the system. They're bitches to the deep state, and they act like it.
To follow up on that, the Senate yesterday did not pass this NDAA, which you mentioned earlier. I think Massey was the only Republican in the House to vote against it, although
I think that's correct.
The Democrats did end up voting against it, although they said it was because of it would further fund the Iran war. So not specifically over this provision, which we're talking about, which is called Section 219, which we've written about at the American Conservative, and you've warned about most recently in an episode with Dennis Kucinich. This is a bill that would merge the U.S. and Israeli military industrial complexes together, and it would actually give Israel leverage over American foreign policy, unlike the way it works now, where we could kind of control, all the arms that they have. They're completely dependent on us, and we can shape their behavior that way if we decide to cut them off. This bill would not allow us to do that. It would reverse it, actually. They could cut us off. But this bill was voted down in its present form. I'm just wondering how confident you are that this merger will be stopped, or that it could be stopped, and that the deep state and Israel lobby just won't ultimately get their way, as they so always do.
I mean, clearly sunlight is the only solution here. And you guys have, I think I texted you about the piece that you wrote on this. It's so informative. And it's not, it's not just like a Twitter slogan. This is actually happening. And it is truly a merger, like for real. And it does give Israel power over the United States military and intel services. So that's like, it's prima facie crazy. Nothing like that can happen if the majority of the population knows it's happening, because most people are against that, of course. No sensible, they're not even defending it. And as you well know, you guys have written it, this is a workaround to their unpopularity. So 10 years from now, no member of Congress is going to vote to appropriate money to the IDF, because by that point, we'll know exactly what they did in Gaza, because everything becomes public in the end. Nothing is hidden forever, and we're going to know. And there's no chance that anyone will ever vote for military aid to Israel again. And so what they're trying to do is codify this and take that decision from a public democratic forum, the Congress, the lawmaking body, and move it to the Pentagon Procurement Office, which is totally opaque, right? So that's why Bibi's like, oh, really, we think we should get off U.S. military aid. No, you're trying to make it permanent in a way people won't perceive, obviously. But what's interesting is this is like the last opportunity for the democratic process to stop this, small d democratic process, and the big D Democratic Party stopped it. And the reason they did is because they're afraid of their own voters. They understand, like, I'm very upset about Israel. That's why I was interviewing Dennis Kucinich, lifelong Democrat. He was a wonderful man, by the way, actually. I don't mean to, he's probably a bad example because we actually do agree on a lot, but there are plenty. Ro Khanna, for example, we don't agree on much, but we strongly agree on this. Well, I'm still an outlier on the right, and you guys are too. But on the left, I know from going through airports 2 days ago, this is a huge issue on the left, and God bless them for making it that, against the wishes of their leaders, by the way. Chuck Schumer doesn't want to talk about this, but a lot of Democratic voters do. And I just think representatives watching those three races in New York City, those primaries where Mondani got behind three Democratic socialists and they all beat incumbents. Like, wow, how'd that happen? Israel. That's how it happened. So they get that. They're afraid of their own voters. Every member of Congress should wake up every single day afraid of his own voters. When you're not afraid of your own, and by fear, I mean respect. You should have deep respect for your voters. Voting against their interests or wishes ought to be something you do lightly and with much care and fear and trembling. And they don't. They just like every single day give the finger to their own voters. You saw yesterday what it looks like when members of Congress were afraid to do that. And so I'm so thankful. We were saved by the Democrats. Don't often say that, but it's true in this case.
Let's go through the specific claims made about Section 219 one at a time, because this is a case where precision genuinely matters and where the claim can easily get overstated in either direction. Start with what the provision actually does, because this needs to be stated carefully. The claim that Section 219 creates a full military merger with American and Israeli forces under a shared command structure does not hold up and was correctly walked back in this segment itself. What the provision does establish, based on the bill's actual language, is a permanent United States-Israel defense technology cooperation framework, along with a dedicated Pentagon official whose specific role is deepening that technological integration across areas including missile defense, artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, and autonomous weapons systems. That is a real and substantive expansion of defense cooperation, but it is meaningfully different from a merger of military command structures. And that distinction matters for accurately understanding what's actually being debated. The bipartisan opposition claim is one of the more verifiable and genuinely significant parts of this segment. Representative Ro Khanna, a Democrat, did introduce an amendment attempting to strip the provision from the broader defense bill, and it was voted down in committee. Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican, made a similar attempt on the House floor and was also blocked. In the Senate, opposition to the provision being included in a must-pass defense bill without separate debate was led by Senator Bernie Sanders, joined by Senators Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey, Chris Van Hollen, and Peter Welch. This cross-ideological opposition, from libertarian-leaning Republicans to progressive Democrats, is a documented and notable pattern that doesn't fit a simple left versus right framing of the issue. The specific vote count cited, that the provision passed the House 214 to 211 on July 22nd, is the kind of specific number that should be checked directly against the official House roll call record for that date, since vote margins this narrow are exactly the kind of detail that gets misremembered or slightly misreported in commentary, and verifying the exact tally against the congressional record is straightforward and worth doing before treating the number as settled. The claim about Israel's status regarding the Biological Weapons Convention deserves careful and precise handling. Israel has not ratified the Biological Weapons Convention, which is accurate and verifiable through the treaty's own list of signatory and ratifying nations maintained by the United Nations. The additional claim that independent analysts widely believe Israel maintains an undeclared offensive biological weapons capability is a more contested assertion. Some arms control researchers and non-proliferation analysts have raised concerns about this over the years, but it remains a matter of ongoing debate among experts rather than a settled consensus finding. And it should be presented with that level of caution rather than as an established fact equivalent in certainty to Israel's confirmed non-ratification of the treaty itself. The AIPAC funding claim that the organization funds candidates across the ideological spectrum specifically based on their position on this single issue rather than broader political alignment is consistent with documented campaign finance patterns showing AIPAC-affiliated spending going to candidates with otherwise very different domestic policy positions, a pattern that has been independently confirmed through FEC filing analysis by multiple campaign finance research organizations. Subscribe to Truth Review. We check the bill text, the vote counts, and the treaty status, and we tell you exactly where the claim is solid and where it needs more caution.